Well, good evening to all of our Vikings. It's nice to see everyone on the call tonight. I hope this visit tonight finds you staying warm and ready for our students' return here on February the 15th. Before we get started tonight, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you and a number of other individuals who are on the call tonight. First, of course, our parents and our students who might be on the call. We welcome them. But I also like to take a moment to thank our Board of Education. I suspect there might be a few Board of Education members on the call. We'll be admitting even more people to the call as the evening goes on. But please also allow me to thank middle school staff members who are on the call tonight. Boy, haven't they done a fantastic job setting the tone, tempo, and tenor of our school operations during these first few weeks of the semester. And we're grateful for all that they have done, that which has gone noticed, but especially that which has gone unnoticed in order to help our kids experience success. I'm also pleased to have on the call tonight what I call my group of professionals who I can always count on to help me make really key decisions in our district. And I call them our senior leadership team. And those individuals include our Associate Superintendent of Business and Finance, a gentleman by the name of Scott Young, our Human Resources Coordinator, Sarah Eartham, our Director of Student Services, Brian Johnson's on the call. He'll be especially helpful, I think, in answering questions related to students who might receive special education services. So if anyone has questions, or maybe even to make that contact tonight for a follow-up conversation with Brian hereafter, you'll be able to put a name with a face. And then last, but definitely not least, my friend and colleague, Sarah Straka, who's our Director of Instruction. They complement very nicely the outstanding work of the two lead administrators in the middle school. I'm grateful that Paul Christensen has joined our call tonight. He's our principal at the middle school, as well as his associate principal, Melissa Hansen, who's on the call tonight. Maybe it'd be helpful just to kind of talk a little bit about a few things before we dig into your questions. And while we kind of provide this general overview of where our thinking is at least at this time, you might want to be adding questions into our chat feature. So if those of you are new to Google Meets, maybe if I could just give you a brief tutorial. In the upper right-hand corner of Google Meets, you'll see a little chat box. It looks like a little quotation, something you might see in a cartoon. If you were to click that, you certainly can add in any questions that you might have. And in a few minutes, Principal Christensen's going to walk us through and facilitate those kinds of questions that are out there. And we welcome, of course, questions even from our students. First things first, though, before we dig into that, let's provide that general overview, and then Paul will give a little deeper dive into our best thinking as of right now, and then we'll open it up to your questions. Why don't I just quickly present my screen with you, if you don't mind. This might look familiar. I hope it looks familiar to many of you, as hopefully you will have received this letter in the email to you this past Monday. It was an overview as to where we plan on leading the middle school community here over the next couple of weeks in anticipation of students' return to hybrid and also continue the successful experience that we've had at the virtual realm as well. We see that several students are continuing to demonstrate great success in the virtual realm, and we want to continue to offer that for kids as well. So we anticipate, as you probably gleaned from this email, and I share this with you again only because there might be some of you who have not seen this email. And if that's the case and we need to update your Infinite Campus information, we'd be pleased to do that. If you just send me an email, we can get you the directions as to how to do that. But we do look forward to launching our middle school students in a hybrid and virtual environment beginning Monday, February the 15th. We learned on just unexpectedly that Public Health Madison-Dane County on December 14th announced to us that they were going to do away with the metrics that they had promoted just 2 days before school had even started. And so this got us thinking that maybe we needed to begin dusting off some of those plans that we had to start the school year. And we wanted to share that information with our faculty and staff, and we did that in a faculty meeting after having worked through the holiday break. We did that with our faculty and staff on Monday of this past week, and we'll go into a deeper dive as to what that will entail. But as you can tell by this email, there are a couple of must-haves. One of those must-haves is all students who will be attending school, with rare exception, will be required to be wearing a mask and to have it properly worn at all times. There might be some students with physical limitations, or perhaps maybe have some intellectual disabilities that preclude them from being able to properly wear that mask, and those exceptions are noted in Public Health Madison-Dane County's ordinance. But suffice to say, we could really use your help, parents, if you need help with procuring a mask, or in helping kind of create, I think, a bit of resiliency might not be the right word, but kind of build up your tolerance level for wearing a mask for long periods of time. We encourage people to start doing that now. I know it took me a while to do that. One of the other requisites from Public Health Madison-Dane County is that we maintain 6 feet of physical distancing in our buildings at all times. And so that, because of square footage, will necessitate us having to do a bit of a cohort model that those of you who have little ones at the K-5 level are familiar with. And so we'll be talking a little bit about that cohorting in a few minutes with Paul's thoughtful comments. But suffice to say, those are really 2 of the big must-haves in this effort. Some have asked me, well, Steve, the Harvard study indicates that 3-foot physical distancing is what's being called for. Why don't we just do that? And that's simply because we're not permitted to do that. And as a result, that does have an impact on our ability to transport larger numbers of students and to have large classrooms, or larger size classrooms of kids. We will be looking at a cohort model similar to an A through K, L through Z model, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, respectively. And Paul will talk about that in a few moments. And the other piece that was recommended to us by Public Health is that we not start all of our students grades 3 through 12 at the same time, but rather we do a progressive staggered approach to this. And so those of you with children at the intermediate center will know that we will be beginning their program on February the 1st, and then those with older Vikings will be beginning their program on February the 22nd, virtual and hybrid in all capacities. If you've missed either one of those parent meetings, we did post those on our district's website. When you go to the banner there, you'll be able to see access and gain access to some of those videos we have on our YouTube channel. So I wanted to keep my part short and sweet, much like my very self, and really turn it over to the man of the hour. And of course, those of you know Paul Christensen, know him to be a very thoughtful leader. Paul and I actually joined in Mount Horeb at the same time. We're part of the class of 2016, and I tell you what, it's just been a real great run. It's an honor to work with this gentleman, and of course, his colleague, our colleague, Melissa Hansen, who's also on the call tonight. Paul, welcome. I'll turn it over to you to share. Why don't I share your PowerPoint presentation if that's helpful for you?
Sure. Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you, everybody. A couple of things. If Steve's going to share the screen with the PowerPoint and walk through it, I have also in the chat here, hopefully that link works for all of you. That will take you to a PDF of what Steve will be sharing as well, so you can follow along on your own if you'd like. But I just wanted to take a few minutes tonight, first of all, to hopefully paint a picture of just some of the key pieces and things that we have planned here for middle school students as we look to return to in-person instruction, obviously in a hybrid manner. And a number of the pieces that I'll share with you tonight, some of which I've already shared with students via a little video that I put together for them earlier in the week. And they will have another one coming their way tomorrow during Viking Hour with just a few more details that we've actually sort of ironed out even since that was presented to them back on Monday evening, I believe it was. So if there's anything that I can say, please know that we will do our very best to help support all those students, those that come and join us for a couple days a week, or as well as those that continue to stay in a virtual model. But regardless which they choose or which you as a family decide is best for you and your students, things are going to look much differently than they currently do. Whether students are coming into the building, things will look very different. And if they're staying virtual, there will be some things that look different than they do right now. If nothing else, we will be beginning earlier in the morning, and there will be some different breaks that occur throughout the day. So I'll jump into a couple of schedule things to give you sort of an overview of what a typical day may look like for students who are in person. And obviously, I said it's going to look much differently. We will be here for full days, 8:05 until 3:25, just like a normal school year. Last names A through K will be joining us on Monday and Tuesday, and L through Z on Thursday and Friday. One of the big differences here is all students will participate in school 4 days a week. So if you are a student who falls into the A through K category, you will be live and in front of teachers here on Monday and Tuesday, but then you'll also be logging in to your classes on Thursday and Friday, similarly to what our middle school students are doing right now. And the Viking Hour that we have currently 5 days a week, I think we will pull that back to 4 days a week. So that won't be necessarily something that's expected of them on Wednesdays. But all students in every Viking Hour, whether it's in person or virtually, will be joining us 4 days a week. And the 4 class periods will meet each day as well, just like it does now. There might be a little bit of a change in the order of those. Currently, you may know that on Mondays we have hours 1, 2, 3, and 4, and Tuesdays 5 through 8. We may need to do something with odds and evens and some of those small things, but just know that it will still be 4 full class periods, and actually they'll be extended a little bit each day. The other thing, back to Steve's comments about cohorts and just needing to keep groups small, it's a little bit more challenging at the secondary level because our students normally would mix upwards of 9 or 10 times throughout any given day. So we will have some extended portions of the day where students are with their homeroom. And on the next slide here, you can see just sort of a running list of all of the things that we may be doing during that time. Some of it will be very instructional, whether that is music lessons or intervention. Some of it may be just helping support students with assignments or things that they need to be working on during classes, or going in and redoing assessments that they were unsuccessful on the first time around. But also just understanding that our students are going to need some breaks. Whether you are virtual or in person, as Steve said before, wearing a mask for 7 hours is quite a challenge. And we are going to try and build in some recess and mask breaks and get kids outside much more than we typically do in a normal school year. But I think we recognize the importance of them really needing that, as those days will be can be quite long when you have a mask on all day. So that's just a variety of things that may be done during those homeroom times, which will occur a couple different times throughout the day. So let's take a little bit deeper dive here into what an example of a student's day might look like. So if a student is coming into school on Monday and they are live and in person, they'll go right to their homeroom right away. And we will have Viking Hour and then that extended homeroom time that I just talked about. And then they may go based on their class. This could change a little bit based off of 6th, 7th, or 8th grade and getting lunches in there. But as an example, they might attend a couple of classes, which will be longer than a normal class, not a block It won't be a 90-minute block or anything like that, but definitely longer than your typical 45-minute class. And then they would have some lunch and some homeroom time, attend a couple of classes, and then be dismissed. Now, for those students who are staying in an all virtual track, as well as the students who are joining us in person, but on their off days, their days will look a little bit differently. They will still be joining those Viking Hour classes 4 days a week. There may also be some invites or requested small group times similar to what we see right now with those morning times. Then they may attend a couple of classes virtually, have a break and possibly some more small group times or joining their homeroom, and then attend a couple of other classes virtually, and their day would end at 3:25. So the one thing that I would say is that Viking Hour will start much earlier in the morning. Exactly when that will occur, we're not sure, but it won't be 10:55 like it is now, as we need to get a couple more classes in the morning and lunches and those types of things. So overall, part of the rationale for why we're really doing this, we have a long list of it, but it maintains the current instructional levels that we have. It allows time for some built-in movement breaks. It's doable for virtual students. One thing that I've learned from area principals who have had virtual students try and join classes over an 8-period day is it's just not manageable. I can't imagine sitting in front of a screen going from class to class to class from 8 o'clock in the morning until 3:30 in the afternoon. It's really not doable, and it's not fair for students. This also would allow students who, in the unfortunate case that they need to quarantine based off of an exposure, it doesn't change their scheduled day. They're still allowed to access all of their classes 4 days a week. They would just be doing that from their homes. The other thing this does is it allows fewer transitions. As I said earlier, in a typical school day at the middle school, we'd have upwards of 10 or 11 transitions when you think about arrival all the way up to dismissal. So having less classes in any one day and having students stay a little bit tighter in their groups with homerooms will allow us to have fewer transitions. It also continues to allow our students to have multiple opportunities to get support from teachers. And maybe lastly, it balances the amount of concurrent and non-concurrent teaching that's going on in the building. Just to explain what that would mean, concurrent teaching would be when a teacher has a number of students in front of them as well as a number of students logged in remotely. Non-concurrent would obviously be one or the other. So having a schedule set up somewhat similar to this allows some balance there. So moving along, instruction will look different as well. So not only will the school day itself look different than it currently does, instruction is going to look much different. I think it will actually look more similar to what we currently are seeing. The difference is students will actually be able to be in the building and in some classrooms. But we will be utilizing Chromebooks much more than we ever have in the past. Google Classroom will still continue to be the mode in which we are able to give assignments to students and they can submit things that way. Unfortunately, we aren't in a situation where we can have students sitting at a table and doing group work or working together in that fashion, just because we need to make sure that students are staying 6 feet apart from each other. And that leads into the next piece of it, is just safety. And that's really the reason we design these things, is to keep the adults and the students as safe as possible when they return. So as Steve alluded to earlier, masks are just absolutely critical. They're essential and required at all times, and they'll need to be worn appropriately. But we'll help students manage that and help support them in how to do that appropriately, because my guess is many of them have worn them, but maybe not, definitely not for as long of periods of time as they're going to need to while they're here. Obviously staying 6 feet apart. I talked a little bit about limiting the mixing of students. If we think about a passing time on a typical year, we would have upwards of 600 students passing from one class to another at one time. That won't be the case. We would be doing that by groups no larger than houses, and really it would be half of houses when you take the alphabet and cut it in half. Lunch, those types of things, those will all be things where we just won't be able to mix outside of those little bit smaller groups based off of whatever house each student is in. So we'll have alternating lunches and passing times I talk about. And lockers, it's not likely we're even going to need them. It's possible we may use them for coats, but that would be just about it. Students will be taking all of the materials they need with them from one class to another. Obviously, with less students in a classroom, we'll have room in those classrooms for backpacks and those types of things, which are not typically something that we would necessarily have the space for, but with less students, we definitely will be able to. So I said this to students, and I think it's important for you to hear this too. We are fully aware that some students are brand new to middle school. A third of our students, every single sixth grader, has never even been here unless they happen to be here for a basketball game or with an older sibling or something. But we didn't have step-up day. We weren't able to give them a tour, all of those things that we typically do to get our sixth graders ready. And if there's anything I can say, please don't worry about that. Our teachers will spend an immense amount of time, just a tremendous amount of time, helping them get accustomed to our building, helping them get to where they need to be. And if they go to the wrong place, they go to the wrong place, and we'll get them turned around and routed back to where they need to go. So if there's any concern about that, please know that we understand that, and this is very new for a lot of those 11 and 12-year-olds that'll be walking in the front doors. And just like we do every year, we will support them as much as we possibly can. And my message to students was, this is very similar in some ways to the beginning of a new school year, because for them, they maybe haven't been in a school at all in a very long time, let alone in this building at all. So please, if there's any concerns there, or if there's something I can do to help quell any concerns between now and the middle of February, please don't hesitate to reach out. The next slide has my contact information, and obviously you can find that on the website and everything. And I will say, if nothing else, just from myself as well as all the staff here, we are beyond excited to help support each and every one of your students, whether they decide to come in person or they decide to stay virtual. We will continue to do our best to help them be as successful as they possibly can be, whether they're physically in the building or not. So the last thing that I had for you here is just some important dates to remember. That survey will close fairly quickly. I think nearly 350 families have already responded to that. But if tonight's information has made you think about something a little differently, please don't hesitate to reach out or update that. That's perfectly fine. I will send you a little bit more details about the weeks of January 18th and the 25th. I did send some information on the 11th of December, but just know that those Mondays we don't have any classes, but what we've done is taken our Monday and Tuesday and slid them down. So our Monday and Tuesdays will now meet on Tuesday and Wednesday. Be looking for a video message from me coming your way in the coming days about that. Students got that information earlier this week as well. Couple other things, February 3rd and 10th, those are Wednesdays. We won't have any Viking hour. That's just to give us a little bit more time to prepare as we get ready for students. And by the 10th of February, if not sooner, we will have any schedule changes finalized to families. I anticipate it being sooner than that. But at the very latest, we'll get you that by February 10th. Really, given the model that we have, there should be fairly limited changes to student schedules. And then February 15th is the target date to welcome some students back into Mount Horeb Middle School. So with that, I will take a peek at the chat here and see if there's anything that has popped up since I started that maybe I can help answer some questions for. Wednesdays still very well could be utilized for student council or some of the other things that I know that there are some other student groups, whether it's future problem solvers or forensics or those types of things that have been using some other days of the week. And that's definitely something that's possible. Classes will be approximately about an hour. Right now we have them penciled in around 65 minutes, knowing that having students on the screen as well as in front of you will take a little bit of additional time, but those are rough estimates. We're still working out some of the details of how to feed 400 students. and not have them eating at 9 in the morning and then at 2:30 in the afternoon still. So there's still some of those real specifics that we need to work out yet. Let's see. There is a question about a procedure for the exposure, and I believe we have CJ Goodwin, our school nurse, joining us. CJ, would you mind answering? It says, what will the procedure be if there is an exposure?
Yeah, great question. So I think it's best to, I'll kind of explain it and then I can give an example. Hopefully that will help. With knowing that every case can sometimes take its own little twists and turns. So if there is an exposure, for instance, a student in a classroom has tested positive. We, in all ways, shapes, or form, beg families to please tell us this, of course. And from there, what will happen is I will begin a process called contact tracing, which means that I will do an investigation into which classrooms was this student in, or this could absolutely be a staff member too. Which classrooms were they in? Were they at school when they were infectious? And if so, what person or persons were less than 6 feet from them for a combination of 15 minutes or more in an entire school day? So if it is determined that there have been people that fit those parameters, meaning, hey, we saw Sally and George and they were in the hall chit-chatting it up on and off, and we tried really hard to separate them, but they wouldn't. George is probably going to be a close contact of Sally's. It is then my job as the contact tracer to then reach out to George's family and let them know he is a close contact. At that point, for confidentiality reasons, I would never reveal a student's name. Although I can tell you that people can and have found things out because of process of elimination, right? Like, let's say you have a student in who's doing some sports practices and so doesn't show up for 10 to 14 days. Well, we're a small town, right? We are a small group net, but please know that I will do my very best to have the quickest turnaround possible. Sometimes situations do become complex, and just because somebody tests positive on Wednesday, of course, my goal would be to get that information right away from a parent or staff member and have the turnaround time being, you may get an email from me at 10 o'clock at night. You might get an email from me at 6 o'clock in the morning. And you will find out via email if your student or students are considered a close contact. Unfortunately, go ahead.
I was just mentioning, you always do such a nice job providing these kinds of overviews, and you've done a great job of putting all those protocols on our district's website that presented next to your image here. Could you walk parents through how they can get access to this information even after we're done with our call tonight?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So if you, Steve is presenting his screen, he's got the COVID-19 update. So if you're on the main home screen of our website and you scroll kind of down, you will see COVID-19 update. And under that, you will see COVID-19 protocols and kind of what we're doing as a district and what we have in place. In addition to that, pretty much anything you can find under Public Health Madison-Dane County, which I'm sure many of you are aware of, PHMDC is the acronym, is all of the guidance that we're following. Please know, number one, I'm following all of that guidance. And number two, if I'm following that guidance and I still have questions and I still have concerns, we have a school liaison. It is a COVID-19 school liaison that is specifically assigned to our school. I contact that person, and if that person still is unsure or doesn't know the answer, they go straight to a public health epidemiologist who then helps us kind of make a decision. So it's not me making the decision, it's me relaying public health's decision. And then sort of as a follow-up to that, you as a parent or staff member or even the general public can get right on our dashboard that Dr. Salerno is showing here and sort of looking at what is going on inside of our schools. Now, from a standpoint right now, you have to know that these are positive cases of our students that are only attending on campus. So beginning in September, those would have just been some of our special education students, right? So, and then we began to add in a few more students, few more special ed students kind of came on board. And then in November, you might remember, our K through 2 came back. So you can see here, so positive student cases who are on campus students. So we've had a total positive cases within all of our buildings for students of 8. I think that number is remarkable. I think that that shows, number one, that our community is doing a great job. Number two, our families are doing a remarkable job. Just being cautious and not sending, oh, Joey's got a little bit of a runny nose, I'm going to send him anyway. Just really being a bit more reserved and pull back. So if you're curious, these are the places to go to, and you may be able to see at the top, we do update it every Tuesday. We meet at 11:30. Myself, our other superstar, great leader, Pam Shaw, she's your K through 5th grade nurse, and then Sarah Eartham, our HR coordinator. The three of us get together and we get this information updated for everybody. So I'm happy to add anything else if I didn't explain something or if anything needs some clarification.
Thank you, CJ.
Yeah, and you know, I know that it's not on your presentation, Paul, but I'm going to go ahead and put my email address in the chat. Please, parents, staff know this because they're probably sick of getting my emails, but reach out to me. You have questions, you have concerns. Even if it's the what if questions, ask me. I can't promise I'll have an answer right away, but I will do my very best to provide that.
Thank you, CJ. That was very helpful. I believe I've been able to follow the chat, and there's upwards of 10 or so questions. I'll do my best to answer them. I have Melissa Hansen, who's always more than willing to help me out, and she said that she would sort of keep track of that as well in case I happen to miss something. So there was a question about changing teachers. I think in very rare instances, with very rare exceptions, teachers will not be changing for students. Their Viking hour teachers will be the same, and they will be attending classes with the same teachers that they are currently. Let's see here. February 11th and 12th, that's correct. There is no school at all on that Thursday and Friday. So please plan for that. I apologize for not having that on that last slide. I'll be sure to include that in my parent information that goes out as well. There was a question about students who are attending virtually and what that will look like. Yes, those are live stream classes. So they will be right in there with the other students who are virtual, the other students who are in person, as well as the other students who are on the off days but have chosen in person. So for example, I'm a Christensen, that's a C. If I were to come in person, I would be in the building on Monday and Tuesday, but I would be attending classes virtually along with the students who are all virtual on Thursday and Friday. So hopefully that helps clear that up a little bit. There was a question.
Do you think I can interrupt you? I apologize. You're doing such a great job, but I wonder, Sarah Straka has also done some great work around what does the actual instruction from a technology standpoint look like. Would it be okay if maybe she shared a little insight there, Sarah?
Well, Paul let it off pretty good. Hopefully I can add a little bit more. So within our K2 buildings, we do have that concurrent teaching that Paul's talking about just for a portion of the morning to make sure that our students who attend Monday and Tuesday can still see their peers that will be attending Thursday and Friday. So we have that in place. We have the technology in place for that. We have cameras with tripods in the classrooms that teachers can move anywhere, and then teachers share their presentation or their slides on that main display in the classroom. So then the students at home, just like they've been doing, just like we're doing right now, have that Google Meet where they can see what's happening on the screen, just like the students in the classroom, and they can hear everything. The cameras that we have amazing audio. It picks up every little piece in the classroom. So if a student in the far corner is answering a question in the classroom, the virtual students at home will hear that answer. And if a virtual student is providing an answer, the students in the classroom will hear it in the speakers. So we're looking to make this as seamless as possible. And we're also trying to make sure that we have 4 days of instruction for all kiddos.
Thanks for that, Sarah. Yeah, one of the questions was, if I'm joining virtually, will I be able to ask questions? And absolutely, every student in the class will be able to ask a question, whether it's virtually like this or they happen to be sitting there. There was a question about bringing our own devices. We're still working on that to see if we have the capability for students to be able to bring their own devices and access all of the things that they would need through our Wi-Fi or other things through our network. So more to come on that one. There was a question about band and choir. A couple of things. One of the nice things about us continuing in a virtual model for all students, at least for a portion of their week, is they will definitely be able to still attend choir and band and orchestra and all of those and play their instruments safely from their homes. There are also a number of activities that are part of the standards that go along with music classes as well, that we would be able to do here in person, at least until we have some more guidance from Dane County on being able to actually play instruments in the building. Everything from researching the text of a piece of music, the history of a piece of music, studying the rhythms of music rather than just reading the notes. Those are all skills that we teach students already when they're here. So we would just expand on those when students are physically in the building, and then do some of the other things while they are live streaming in. There was a question about testing. CJ, I don't believe there would be any regular testing of students here at school, or those types of things. Is that accurate?
As of right now, that is accurate, yes. That is something that actually Pam and I are sort of dividing and conquering some tasks. That is actually on her task list of looking into that. What does it involve? Is it the right fit for our school? And what training needs to be, what training would we need to do to be able to do that? So that is sort of a, not right now, but potentially coming down the line, and we would keep families, of course, informed of that kind of information.
Thank you for that. A couple other things that I think have popped up. Ask about percentages. The last time I checked, we were about 80% of our families saying that they would like to join, but clearly we have only had about half of our families respond to the, so it was about 80-20 the last time I looked, but as I said, only about half of our families have responded. The other question that I found out had to do with students. If they stay virtual, will we do some things in the fall for them? And absolutely. I think there is going to be a tremendous amount of reteaching students just how to be students. They haven't done that in a normal, quote unquote, normal fashion since March of last year. And regardless of whether they choose in person, you as a family decide to send your student in person, or whether they stay in a virtual model, school is still not going to look like it normally does, even if they're coming in here a couple days a week. And so we will definitely do a lot in the fall to help students just prepare to be students. I know our PBIS team always does a fantastic job with putting skits and information together for students about what we expect of them. And I know that teachers do a fantastic job of that as well. So absolutely. Let's see here. 8 classes a day. No, as I said before, we've got some extended homeroom time and a couple of classes per day. Phy Ed classes, yep, those will still happen. So we will still have Phi Ed, just as we always do. Let's see. The question about school lunch accounts. I believe I can answer that, but Sarah, would you be able to clarify that one for us? I think I have the answer, but I would hate to get this one wrong. So if you don't have it, perfectly fine. I'd be happy to check with Michelle Dink and get back to anyone if they've got that question. But
Yeah, and I'm going to answer. And Steve, you can fact check me as well, or I might pass it off to Steve too. But with the federal government extending the free lunches and breakfasts are available to all students, whether they're in the building or not in the building. So if you're already familiar with our amazing food service department, has already been boxing up breakfast and lunches for all of our virtual students for families to pick up once a week. But now with students in the building, they will have access to that food as well. And I believe Steve, correct, but school lunch accounts will not be charged because it is free through the federal government. And Scott can answer that too. I see Scott on here.
Scott Younger, Associate Superintendent of Business and Finance, he also oversees our school nutrition program. Scott, could you just confirm that for us, please?
Yes, so Sarah is correct. Welcome everybody, by the way. Sarah is correct that the federal program that was extended through the school year would still apply for kids that are receiving lunches during the school day when they're in the building. The exception to charges on a lunch account might be if a student wants to purchase an additional milk, or our food service director shared with me that she may be providing a few very limited a la carte items. So if somebody wants to purchase something additional, that would be on the lunch account. But rest assured, the normal regular lunch that would be served would still be part of that free federal program. Thanks, Sarah, for introducing that.
thanks for that, Scott and Sarah. As far as lunch pickup, we did have a brief conversation with Michelle Dink, the coordinator of food service or student nutrition, and we would be looking at sending things home for our A through K students on Tuesday, I believe, tentatively, and our L through D students would be taking things home on Friday until they came back to us. So we would make sure that we're sending things home with students to allow them to have breakfast and lunch as they move forward.
Hey, Paul, I see we're up against about 5:45 almost. And, we had told families that we would do about 45 minutes, but we're getting some great questions tonight. Are you okay if we continue along and maybe spend another 5 or 10 minutes or so with answering additional questions? But at the same time, maybe it's helpful if we push the pause button for a second to allow those families who had other obligations this evening to jump off the call. Would that be okay with you, Paul? Could we take a few extra questions?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you. While we have people jumping off the call, maybe if I could just remind individuals of something that's really important for us. In order to make this happen, we're really going to need the help of you in reaching out to people within your family, within your neighborhood, within your network, so to speak, to help us find some really great, talented individuals who are looking for jobs. It's not just our teachers who we need to be thinking about in terms of long-term supports, but we also have a number of vacancies right now that are out there in the realm of bus drivers, paraprofessionals, school nutrition, and custodial services. And we find that the best candidates are often people who are referred to us, because I tend to believe that high-performing people run with other high-performing people. So if you know of someone and you could pass this information along, this really, in my estimation, is the linchpin to our ability to successfully launch on time come February the 15th. So thanks for allowing that bit of a commercial break, so to speak, while we're visiting here tonight. Hey, Paul, what else we got in terms of questions?
Yeah, there's one other question, just a clarification about instruction and delivery. And there may definitely be instances where students who are in the building are still logging into a Google Meet, if you will, to not only be able to get some of that instruction virtually, but also interact with the students who are out there in the virtual world. So hopefully that helped clarifies it. That some of those things will look much differently in a science classroom than they will in a tech ed classroom. So, but definitely, as I said, the Chromebook usage will still be something that's doable, if nothing else, for those live students to be able to interact with some of those that are out there virtually. Let's see what else we have. Wednesdays, clubs and some of those extra things on Wednesdays may still be an opportunity for students to still connect with us here at the middle school, based off of just availability of students and staff. So some of that will still apply, but it won't necessarily be set in the schedule, nor I guess it's not right now either. But let's see what else I can help with. Wendy, I'm sorry if I was unclear. There could definitely be times where students are on their devices, similar to how they are now when they're physically in the building, to allow them to interact with students who are out there online. But then there may be times where that isn't necessarily the case as well. So. Students don't stay with the exact same group the entire time, but one of the benefits of middle school is that we have a lot of opportunities for students to try new things and to interact with different groups of students. One of the challenges in this situation is that in many cases we only have one or maybe two teachers who teach a particular course. So the students do need to move around a little bit and have some mixing, but we've have it set up where I believe we'll be able to keep that as tight as each house. So the clubhouse, for example, and then take the clubhouse and break it down into the A through K or the L through Z of the students who are coming in. So cohorts would be a little bigger than at the elementary level, but definitely smaller than half of the alphabet or something like that. Yes, there would be ways to charge Chromebooks, definitely. And I do believe that we would look at potentially having an on-ramp or an off-ramp, maybe near the end of the third quarter as we go into the fourth quarter or somewhere in there. So if you choose hybrid and you're finding it to be not what you prefer, or vice versa, I do think we maybe will be able to have another opportunities for families to make a little bit of a different change in their direction as we wrap up the school year.
Say, Paul, one of the things that I think is on people's mind, but maybe not just showing up in the chat, has to do with air quality. We've been spending some time with the Harvard study, which does an extensive job of explaining what is good, better, and best in terms of how to set our schools up for fresh air intake as well as filtering systems. I've learned so much about MERV ratings. I think I could work at Home Depot these days. Give me an orange smock. I've learned that typically most of our homes have a MERV filter rating of about a 6 or a 7. And what Harvard has suggested in their study is that we actually move to a MERV rating of about a 12 or a 13. And we typically, as a school district, run MERV 8, 9 filters in our schools. But taking a cue from Harvard, we had ordered and now have placed in each of our buildings these MERV 13 rated filters. And in fact, to some point, we actually had to have them retrofitted to meet our current furnace system. So I'm really pleased by that. And we're fortunate that we have an amazing buildings and grounds team that helped us get to a yes on that huge project. But similarly, Harvard also says that the average air turnover in a home, I think, is somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 6 times per hour, taking in as much fresh air as possible. They've suggested to introduce as much fresh air as we can. As you might know, some of our windows, in fact, I think maybe Paul, Melissa, I might be wrong in this, but is it true that most rooms, their windows do not even open, or we don't have windows? So we need to do what we can to bring in fresh air. And we have the ability to program our systems that would allow a turnover rate per hour of about 8 times. And so why am I telling you all this? It's important not only from the air quality perspective, but because it's quite chilly out right now, bringing in that fresh air might make it a little colder in the classroom. And so anything you can do to encourage your child maybe to dress in layers, because the system may not have the opportunity to heat up that cold air as we take it in as fast as possible. Of course, we're not talking in the 30 degrees, but we're certainly talking about maybe in the mid-60s that our kids could sometimes experience a bit of a chill, and we just want them to be prepared for that. May I answer any follow-up questions that people might have about that? Awesome. Well, Paul, might this be a good time just to check in and see if there's any students who are on the call tonight who they might have a question or two. We need to hear from them. We want to see them. Any students here?
Dr. Salerno, I don't know if you can hear me. This is Krista Olson. I do have a question that I put in the chat. I just don't feel like we are getting the whole picture here. And I'm just wondering if you can, either Sarah or Paul or Melissa can just clarify the mode of instruction, because I feel like we're not sharing the same message that teachers necessarily have.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that. Yeah, Paul.
Yeah. So, Krista, I saw your question in there, and I think to your point, I think there will be times when students are on their Chromebooks and they're logging into a Google Meet so they can interact with students who are online, as I said a few minutes ago. But there also may be a time where I think about a Brad Miller in art class who is doing a demonstration of some kind, and the students in front of him may be able to see what he is doing. But to Sarah's point, we also will have the capability, if it fits the model of the instruction, to have a web camera on a tripod, and students who are virtual would be able to watch that demonstration as well. So hopefully that clears that up a little bit. I think there will be times when it makes sense for it to be sort of a big picture looking in, but other times where it looks much more similar to how it does right now, regardless of whether students are in the classroom or not.
I just think that, to be honest, parents need to know if their kid is going to be mostly virtual in school versus not. And I don't think that that's being relayed on this call right now.
Do you mind if I hop in too on that one? There will be cases, so I'm thinking like a math class or social studies or science, where a teacher could be demonstrating on the board the lesson, going through the slides, going through the math problem for the students. The students in the classroom can see what's happening, right? They don't need to be on their device watching what's happening right in front of them. But there will be instances like Paul's talking about, if there is an engagement tool, a Padlet, something like that, where students are interacting, then those students in the classroom on their Chromebooks would be dialoguing, talking back and forth with the students at home. So there isn't like a model for this. We're offering many tools, and we're going to offer many engagement strategies. It's just teachers will have to decide, for my lesson today, what's the best tool and method for my kiddos in the classroom and outside the classroom. I hope that clarifies it a bit.
Krista, your question's really important. How about follow-ups that you will have about that?
I just know how, I mean, I've been wrapping my brain around this since Monday, and the colleagues that I have been interacting with on many meetings have been wrapping our brain around this, and the delivery, the mode of delivery, and I'm speaking for my team, I'm not speaking 612 or 6-8, but we are under the understanding that we will continue the mode of delivery that we have been doing, which I don't feel like is being totally transparent to parents. So that is, I apologize. I'm not trying to make waves here, but I think that people need to make an informed decision. And if your child is going to be spending the majority of the day in school and still be doing a lot of virtual learning, I think they need to be aware of that.
Thank you. And no, you're not making waves. You're raising questions that are very reasonable, and we appreciate you raising them, because we do need to make certain that everyone's feeling comfortable with the information we have as of today. This much is true, not just for Krista, but everybody on the call, is that this is an evolutionary process. And we're going to continue to work together to solve the complex questions that are before us. This doesn't have to be the only visit that we have. I know that we've visited several times with our faculty and staff. In fact, our faculty and staff have just been wonderful in helping us kind of begin to plan out this process. And so let this not be the only conversation we have as a school community, a middle school community. We will find our way together through this. We've done it so far, and our kids haven't been in school since March 13th. A lot's transpired since then, and I'm confident that we really can get to a good spot going forward when our kids return on February 15th. So Krista, thank you for your questions. And maybe just because I am looking at 6 o'clock tonight, I do want to put out one last call. If there's any student who had a question that they wanted to ask tonight, they didn't get a chance to. We'd love to hear from you.
I have a question.
Hi, Sam.
Hi. So for clubs, like so when I was in 6th grade, like if there was a club that met in person on Mondays, now it is all on virtual, like all virtually on Mondays. Then once we have people going back to school, will like the people who are there during that time, will they meet in person for that club as well as have virtual things, or will all of the clubs still be all virtual?
Hey, Paul, you got that one?
Yep. Sorry, I was unmuting there. Sydney, I think at least to start with, they would be all virtual. Students will be in their homerooms, and those advisors will be with other students during that time. So at this point, at least to start with, I would see those continuing in an all virtual fashion, which would also allow students who are not in person to join those as well. So thanks for the question.
Dr. Salerno and Paul, I think there was one question that was missed by a parent. And I think it's an important question to address. If this parent chooses to have her child stay virtual, what are we thinking about in terms of the fall to help that student adjust to being in the middle school, to going back to in-person learning?
Yeah, I think hopefully I answered that question. I talked a little bit about just the amount of time we'll spend getting all students ready, or I guess reteaching them how to be students, as well as some of the things that our PBIS team does every year to help with procedures and structures and just start us off on the right foot. Because I do think there will be a fair amount of reteaching, if you will, of what it takes to be a student, and if nothing else, a middle school student, particularly for those who have never been here. So hopefully that's helpful.
Well, this might be a good point to just pause and end where we began, and that was in gratitude to everyone on this call, the support you're providing to your children, our children. We like to think them as ours because we adore them. They have really just been resilient in so many ways, and we're looking forward to supporting your kids, setting them up for success, however you and your students believe is best, either in the virtual realm or in a hybrid model, that we need to put some more meat on those bones. But I'm really confident that when we do launch, the systems and procedures and routines that will have been implemented will really set us on an upward trajectory. That, coupled with the hope of a vaccination, really leads me to believe our best days really do lie ahead in terms of this pandemic. That would not be possible without you and the good work you do. You truly make me proud to be a Viking, and I hope you are too. Please have a great night, okay, everyone? Take care.